Hello guys, Full Messiah here with another Warcraft 3 video. In this video, I will be reacting to another version of the PTR patch that was just released 13 hours ago. As expected, in this new version, we are getting some tweaks to the numbers that were perhaps slightly overzealous in the previous patch, and overall, I like this patch a little bit more than the previous one. That is the nature of the PTR, of course, just to test these things and to see how they perform. If they underperform, to buff them a little bit. If they overperform, to bring them down a notch. So I will quickly go over for all the new changes they introduced in these patch notes. And even though most of them are some minor number tweaks, some of them are actually pretty goddamn crazy. So join me as we see together whether these hit the mark, whether they are just right or a little bit too wacky to go live. But before I dive into the PTR, as always, if you like these kind of videos, please consider subscribing. I'm a very small content creator, so every little bit helps. Anyway, let's get straight into the patch notes themselves. Okay, so I will try to keep this as short as I can. I have a tendency to go a bit of a tangent, so now I'm just going to focus on the changes on this new PTR build. If you want to see my opinion about not just the previous PTR, but all the other changes that I feel would benefit the game, you can click on this video right here. Anyway, let's get straight to it. Bug fixes fixed an issue where players can no longer join a private custom game by name if they did not have the map downloaded, that's fine. Items? Okay, so these are big ones. First, they introduced the Vampiric Potion, but it was like 12 damage and 75% lifesteal, which is absolutely crazy for a level 2 small creep camp. So they now nerfed this down to plus 6 damage and 50% lifesteal, which I feel is a lot better, and I think at this state the item can definitely go live. They also added a visual effect, which is nice. Rune of Lesser Healing from 125 to 75, good change. I think that we could put this to 80, 85 or even 90. I think 90 would still be good. 125 was definitely too much for such a small camp. That's basically a free scroll of healing, which of course you cannot carry with you, but still a little bit too powerful for that creep camp. So I think this change is necessary, but I would like this to be like maybe 90. But I'm glad that Blizzard recognizes things that are maybe a little bit too much and then they're bringing it down a little bit. So that's a good approach. I feel like they brought this down a little bit too much, however. Ring of Protection, plus 3 gold cost reduction. Interesting. I have no strong feelings about this. Ring of Protection was definitely a necessary nerf from plus 4 to plus 3, so that's okay with me. Let's move to the human. And first of all, we have this. Orb of Fire replaced with Orb of Slow. Are you kidding me? Orb of Slow has a 30% chance to proc on units and 15% chance to proc on heroes. Applies a 25% attack speed debuff and 55% movement speed debuffs, or slow, to the target for 10 or 5 seconds on heroes. Are you crazy? 15% chance to proc on heroes and the slow lasts for 5 seconds. This means that if you have like an Archmage with, let's say, 2 Gloves of Haste, you can perma slow an enemy hero with this. What the fuck? That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Like, I understand Orb of Fire sucks at the moment. I get it. So in my opinion, a good change would be to maybe let the Orb of Fire do some kind of splash, ground, and air damage. I think that would be probably better because humans are already oppressive with slow to begin with. This is going to be the best orb in the game, I feel. You combine this with Archmage, with Brilliance Aura, and a couple of sorcerers that can already slow, and then you have this. I think this is too powerful. This is way too powerful. I'll get back to the Orb of Slow a bit later. Let's keep going. Blood Mage Banish cooldown increased from, well, no cooldown to 420. I think this is good. Still 0 cooldown for level 3 Banish. I'm not sure how much I agree with that, to be honest. It is a level 5 Blood Mage, but still. I think 4 seconds is appropriate. The cooldown should have been kept maybe 443. 420 is not good. 0 second cooldown Banish is not good for the game. I hope they tweak these numbers. Holy Light cooldown increased from 5 to 6. Okay, this is absolutely huge. This is something that Starbuck talked about as well. If you want to nerf Pally Rifle, then this is actually how you do it. This is a huge change and a very welcome one. So this, in combination with Banish cooldown reduction, and in combination with Siphon Mana nerf of the acquisition and leash radius, I think that this is finally going to bring down Pella Rifle to an acceptable level. Still powerful, but not OP the way it is right now. Flying Machine movement speed reduction from 400 to 375 gets a good change. Flying Machines are way too good, way too oppressive for a cheap one food unit. Personally, I think Flying Machines need more nerfs. I think Flak Cannon is a ridiculous upgrade that needs to be nerfed, because if you have a bunch of Flying Machines with Flak Cannon, it's the ultimate anti-air. Flying Machine means fuck your air units. Absolutely nothing else can compete with it in-game. It's the ultimate air anti-air unit, and I think that's, again, not good for the game. So I think Flak Cannon needs a reduction as well. This is a step in the right direction though. So overall, I like these changes. Well, except this is a little bit too crazy. Now, other thing I would like to see is that they did not address level 2 water elemental by any means. This is nerfing the Pella Rifle. I welcome that. But here's a problem. Archmage pushes, Archmage play is still incredibly strong. A little bit too strong again in my opinion. Level 2 water elementals have 635 HP, and AM can have up to 3 of them at a time. They're absolutely deadly for any situation, whether it's to harass, for example, Undead Fast Expo, whether it's to harass Orc Burrows. It's just too good, and they still did not address that issue. So I would like to address that down the line. Otherwise, these changes are good and necessary. So coupled with other changes from the previous PTR, like Militia nerf, etc., I think humans are gonna still be in a pretty great spot once all of this goes live. Now, if we want to talk about buffs, I like the Remo's idea of having Sundering Blades be a default upgrade for Knights, so maybe this is something that we could talk about as well, even though Knights are still a pretty good unit regardless. And to be quite honest, if this was up to me, I would nerf the Arcane Tower mana burn just a little bit. It's really too good at the moment. It's by far the best tower in the game as well. So that's my opinion. Orc is my favorite race. I will try to keep my biases out of it, but we'll see. And just to try and review these changes in an objective light. Okay, so they reverted the Orb of Lightning cost increase. Do they mean they reverted the Orb of Lightning cost decrease? I'm pretty sure that's what this means. They reduced the cost to 325 gold. So now I assume going to be back to 375, which is a little bit of a shame. Orb of Lightning is good, but it's a third best orb in the game at best, and with this change of Orb of Slow, it's going to be the worst orb in the game. So the new Orb of Slow is going to cost 325 gold, but Orb of Lightning is going to remain 50 gold higher, even though they both have the same chance to proc slow. Orb of Lightning dispels, but this one nerfs attack speed and movement speed. Fine, whatever. I don't like it, but okay. Torrent cost increased from 280 gold and 80 lumber to 300 gold and 100 lumber. What? What the fuck? 300 gold? This is 400 resource for one Tauren. I'm glad that they didn't backpedal from the resistance skin, but come on! Just for reference, a knight is 245 gold, which is objectively a better unit. This is ridiculous. I disagree strongly with this. If you want to increase the gold cost, increase it to 285, don't touch lumber. This is too much. I guess we'll see, but this is ridiculous. Like, do you want to make torrents unusable? They're already unusable, and this ensures that people are not gonna make them. I don't know. Touch Ward health reduced from 200 to 50. Okay, I like this change. So in the light of making the wards magic immune from the previous patch, this makes sense. I also advocated for the ward health reduction as well. So 50 HP for Sentry Ward is reasonable. It's invisible anyway, so you have to scout for it and then you have to kill it, so that's fine. What is not fine is this second change. First of all, who uses status wards to begin with? That's my number one question. My number two question is, this is a 75% reduction. That's actually insane. So this ensures that you cannot use it in combat to put a cheeky status ward behind your troops and fall back, because a single shot from a ranged hero is going to destroy it. I disagree. If you're going to reduce the health, which I think you should be, reduce it to something like 70 HP. 70 HP is fine. This is a 75% health reduction. I disagree with this. Nation radius reduction is fine. I don't necessarily mind this. I do mind this, Again, like, what's the point of making the wards magic immune if you're going to completely nerf them to the ground? A huge reduction in stun value. I strongly disagree with this. Healing ward area of effect reduced from 500 to 450 also affects item. I think that's not necessary. We already reduced the duration in the previous patch, so I don't think this is needed. It's a tier 3 spell that competes with stuff like Possession. It should be a little bit powerful, shouldn't it? They're nerfing all of these wards, even though the whole idea of this change is to give Witch Doctors actual viability in-game. This health reduction from Sentry Ward is necessary, for sure. I think Status Ward health reduction is also necessary, but not this much, and I think the rest of these are not needed. Great Hole build time reduced from 140 to 135. So in the previous PTR, they buffed it to 120. People had a huge outcry for that, so now they still buffed the Great Hole, but not as much. I guess that's a good compromise. But I'm going to be honest, like, I talked about this previously on Reddit and other places. Humans can power build Town Hall, Undead can put up a Haunted for 105 seconds, Tree of Life is 120 seconds, and it's true that it also has to entangle a gold mine, but you can actually put it further down the back and hide it, and then the tree can just walk over. So what is the problem if orcs have a 120 Great Hole build time? I wanna know. I really wanna know. Anyway, I guess that's better than nothing. In the previous video, I talked about some other things I would like to change, like for example Burrows, Farseers, Farsight, etc. I'm not gonna touch too much into that. If you're interested in those thoughts, you can look at the last video that I made. Let's go to Night Elf. Reverted Demon Hunter mana burn change. I think that's absolutely needed. The change was a little bit stupid. Nobody really likes to be mana burned, but that was not the way to nerf it. Ideally, you would want to nerf the cooldown a little bit. For example, mana burn cooldown gets reduced from 7 to 6 and 5 seconds depending on the level. You can just keep it at fixed 7 seconds. That would be a good nerf that doesn't ultimately require Demon Hunter to go too close into the opponent lines to burn mana. I like the fact that they reverted this change, which was not good. I don't like the fact that they didn't do anything to nerf mana burn in general. Okay, this is absolutely huge. So this is a huge buff to Night Elves. If I understand this correctly, they're going to be gathering lumber a lot quickly. I don't think this is necessary. The previous patch already reduced a couple of things lumber-wise, like for example, Hunter's Hole is 20 lumber cheaper, Nature's Blessing is cheaper. I disagree with this. I think this is not needed, but we'll see how it plays out. Moonstone duration increased. Okay, that's fair. They proposed 45, that was way too much. So 5 seconds is still significant, it's very significant, but I think that's fine. Keeper of the Grove strength gain from 1.8 to 2. I like that change too. I think most people have a consensus that Keeper is pretty weak at the moment and doesn't scale well, so this should give him a little bit more HP to survive later game skirmishes, so I do like that. I also like the Treant buff as well. They're getting a little bit more attack speed, making the Treants a little bit better at Keeper level 1 and 3 until the spell becomes readily available anyway. Chimera movement speed increased from 270 to 290. This is a very good change. Chimeras really don't see any play, so this should make them a little bit more viable. Although, honestly, this doesn't change much. Chimera are still going to be fairly useless, but at least it's something. Now, I actually have a suggestion when it comes to Chimera that I didn't say in the previous video. A huge buff to Chimera would be if you could build Chimera Roost at tier 2. So what I would personally do, I would put Fairy Dragons from Ancient of Wind to Chimera Roost. That way, you can build it at tier 2, and if you really want to go to Chimeras for any reason, you can simply get them out straight out of the gate at tier 3. This is not without precedent. Blizzard already did this with Orcs and Torrent Totems, which technically buffs Torrents, but realistically nerfs Orcs as a whole because Torrents are still sucking at this point in the game. But that's a different topic. That's my suggestion, so I think that's something that Blizzard can think about doing to further buff Chimera play as well. Okay, Moonglave's upgrade now changes Huntress armor type to heavy. What the fuck? What? What the fuck is this? I understand the Huntresses kind of suck at the moment, but there's a reason why their armor type is unarmored in the first place, and that's because they're too good of a tier 1 unit otherwise. They're too fast, too mobile, and even though technically melee, they do have a range which allows more Huntresses to attack a single unit, and they have a splash damage. All of those things make them way too powerful to have heavy armor. How do you counter mass hunts at tier 1 if this change goes live? This Moonglave's upgrade is a tier 1 upgrade. That's fucking stupid. Please don't do this. Mass hunts are going to be indestructible in tier 1 play if you do this. What do you counter them with? Grunts? No, they're gonna eat shit. Headhunters or other piercing units? They don't do shit anymore. Footmen are gonna get trashed. Ghouls are gonna get trashed. Don't do this. There are better ways to buff Huntresses. You can give them more armor points with the Moonglave's upgrade. You can give them more HP. This is not the way. This is so fucking stupid. This is game breaking. Don't do this. Fairy Dragon Mana Flare is now able to be toggled off before the full duration. I think that's a good change. Quality of life upgrade. Whirlpool Blades upgrade now gives an additional 10 damage. I like that too. Glaive Throwers kinda suck. They're one of the worst units in the game, so this should make them a little bit more usable. I don't mind this change. One change that I proposed for Night Elves, even though I said I'm not gonna reference to the previous video, but I will just for this case, is that I proposed Mountain Giants to get resistant skin straight out the gate, just like Taurens now. That way, you get them out quicker and cheaper, and I believe that will make them a lot more usable. So that's another buff I would like to see. Okay, moving on to Undead. They reverted Spiked Carapace change. I think that's good. It was a little bit too stupid. They reverted tier 1 web upgrade. Thank fuck, this is the biggest brain dead idea in the previous patch. I hope that the heavy armored hunts get the same treatment in the next PTR patch notes. They reverted Gargle ground damage change. I don't understand why. Gargs are a little bit OP in the Undead versus Night Elf matchup, so I think this change was needed. I'm not sure why they reverted it, but okay. That's fine, I guess. But it doesn't change the fact that Gargoyles can be a little bit too oppressive against Night Elves at the moment. So they decided to tackle this issue by reducing their movement speed. Okay, that's interesting. Testing is required to see if this is actually going to nerf Gargoyles enough, but I like this angle. The main fact with the Gargoyles is that they're too good at going to the Night Elf base, harassing the economy and killing wisps, so this should make this happen just a little bit less often. So we'll see. The Nerubian Tower attack speed reduction from 1.3 to 1.15, I think this is a good compromise. They wanted to buff the Nerubians to 1 attack per second, which is just too much. There's no need for that. I still think Nerubian is fine, but I'm okay with this compromise. Brand of Negation is now a single target dispel that deals 200 damage to summoned units. Okay. In my previous video, I talked about they should redesign Wand of Negation to a single target dispel. Now they've done that, but they kept the same damage to summoned units. This just makes the wand 10 times worse. I don't get this change. Again, as I said in the previous video, the biggest threat for Undead is the level 2 Water Elemental push into Fast Expo or into a base that's stacking to tier 2. That Water Elemental has 625 HP. At this change, it will require all 4 of those charges to destroy single Water Elemental. That's stupid. This needs to be increased to 350 damage so that you can actually use 2 charges to kill that Water Elemental at level 2. Otherwise, this is just trash. So you gave the item 2 extra charges, but you basically killed the AoE effect of it. I disagree. Anyway, that has been pretty much it for me as far as the new PTR changes are concerned. Overall, I like the direction of this second iteration of the PTR patches. They definitely understand some things that are overperforming and they are kind of bringing them down to a more acceptable level. I like that. I have 2 major objections. First of all, I think even though Orb of Fire sucks, Orb of Slow seems a little bit too powerful, so either increase the gold cost to 375 or tweak the numbers a little bit. Personally, I don't think that humans need another source of slow. I think that's stupid. Sorks already are way too oppressive. Secondly, Huntresses having heavy armor is absolutely batshit insane thing to even consider. What the fuck are you smoking out there, Blizzard? Because I want some of that good shit, is what I'm saying. Don't do that. Otherwise, I think this is slowly starting to shape into a pretty good patch. Couple of more minor objections, like I think torrent cost increase is unnecessary. I think some ward buffs are needed, but others were too much on the heavy side. Anyway, do you agree with me or disagree? Let me know down in the comments below. I always like having conversations about these things, so I'm very much interested in your opinion. And of course, if you like this kind of content and you would like to support me in the future, please consider subscribing. It's free and it really helps a lot to a small channel like mine. That's gonna be it for me today. I'm Fallen Messiah, and I'll see you in the next one.